not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. We're supposed to, speak to one of the individuals who is directly affected, by this travel ban by the Saudi authorities. He had prepared, to travel for lesser Hajj, but this ban, hampered and, distorted all of his plan. Abdullahi Lenyoro was supposed to be with us in the studio this morning, but unfortunately, he was unable to make it.
Yeah, he was. Okay. All right. So with that, we will move on to the newspaper review. Yes, and we will be starting with the Daily Trust newspaper. And on Daily Trust newspaper, the front page, like we just finished a discussion with our aviation correspondent, which is the lead story on Daily Trust newspaper, is tour operators, airlines count losses as Saudi bans Nigeria. And the writers here state, our plans disrupted, says passengers. Resume travel bans, IATA tells government. WHO warns against discriminatory travel bans, says Omicron now in 57 countries. I will also have a story here on page 20 that says, Finance Bill, compulsory tax ID for bank customers. And still on page 20, UBA, still on banking. UBA seizes AEDC's 60% equity as Buhari denies role. We also have at the bottom here, banditry. 23 buried as Sokoto leaders, writes Buhari, and you can find details of that story on page 3. And enough of attacks on judicial officers, says CJN. That story can be found on page 6. Yari Matawale's camps clash over Yarima's statement on ESCO's dissolution, and more on that story can be found on page 41. And we also have this final one that says COVID-19. Donors sent us vaccines with short shelf life. I'm sure they're talking about the expired vaccines, in Nigeria's coffins, and that's from the federal government. And you can find details of that particular story on page 13. These are all the stories we have on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories making headway on the Punch newspaper this morning. On page 23, you'd find federal government plans to acquire 1.8 billion naira telecom facilities to block fraudsters. You'd find on page 2, states grumble as federal government slashes 36 billion naira COVID-19 fund. Omicron hits 57 countries. And on page 7, you'd see some judges sell judgments, retire to escape NJC sanctions. That's according to JIGA. And the lead story, Nigeria's petrol imports jump by 55%, hit 2.52 trillion in 9 months. The riders, oil marketers, experts blame Naira devaluation, crude oil price smuggling. Petrol imports will double next year if federal government delays subsidy removal, says Ipman. Still on page 2, you'd see federal government risks vaccine donation reduction as 1 million doses expire. The new converts stab RCCG pastor to death in Lagos church. That's quite sad. You'd find the details of that story on page 4 and page 5 of the Punch newspaper. You'd also see on page 4 and page 5, Buhari, Tinubu, others mourn Ojodu students' school shot. These are some of the lead stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, we also have the Guardian newspaper, and the lead story here, boldly written, says Omicron. Airline tour operators lament losses as Saudi Arabia cancels Hajj. The writers here say WHO says Omicron reported in 57 countries, hospitalizations are to rise. A different, tougher variant of Omicron spotted in South Africa, Australia, and Canada. And details of that particular story can be found on page 2. We also have CJN inaugurates 72 new SANs, decries Odili's home invasion, Jusun strike, and you can find that story on page 3. Police confirm 23 deaths in bandits attack on Sokoto. You can find that story on page 6. Restructuring remains our only pathway to national stability and growth, says Tambuwal, and you can find that on page 14. PDP asks Obaseki to speak on bribe for ticket allegation, and stories of most details on that story can be found on page 8. And then we have over 67% workers in casual employ as firms cut costs. And you can find details of that story on page 2. These are all the stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Okay, let's take our last paper this morning, which is the Nation newspaper. The lead story there, Army Chief, repentant Boko Haram fighters not sincere. The riders echo as worried over spread of terrorism. You'd also see terrorists, bandits using radio frequency spectrum illegally. You'd also find on page 6 of the Nation newspaper, stop embarrassing judicial officers. CJN warns security operatives. And on page 2 of the Nation newspaper, why 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines expired by minister. You'd also find on page 11, Lagos unveils policy on clean, affordable energy. You'd also see CBN to bank customers resist arbitrary charges. These are some of the lead stories.
Okay, so we have with us a General Editor, Daily Trust, Hamza Idris, in the studio to review the papers with us. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Daybreak. All right, so let's start with the story that's almost on every front page of the newspapers, talking about the banditry and 23 people killed and buried, in Sokoto, and Sokoto leaders writing to Buhari. Let's have your thoughts on that.
Attacks have shipped to Sokoto for some obvious reasons, because we don't hear more of recent of happenings in parts of Katsina, parts of Zamfara, and parts of Niger State, partly because of the obstruction of telecommunication services. Of course, they have restored them in most of these places, but when the federal government ordered serious clampdown, many of the terrorists moved towards Sokoto, and some local governments, including Isa and Sabon Birni, among others, they now became the hotspot of the attack. It was so gruesome what happened 2 days ago. Yes, because the terrorists, ambushed a moving vehicle. Yes, and then they opened fire, then set it ablaze so that none of the occupants could go out, and they all roasted. When you see the photos, you will cry. It was so gory. I think that was what prompted the elite from that area to write the president, and they expressed their anger. They were so furious that are we really living in Nigeria? Yes, because as some people keep saying, lives of chicken is more valuable now than that of humans. Yeah, so people are being killed left, right, and center, and what you hear from officials is that we will tackle them. We will tackle them. I think there is a need for the government to take serious action. And we debated it, that is just wanting to declare somebody a terror or a group, terrorist group or whatever. What is there in a name? It's better not to even change the name and act so that the people who are committing all these atrocities would not even be there in the first place. It's just like changing the name of the prisons. We say correctional facilities or correctional centers. Are they really correctional centers? Look at what is happening. It's like they're even worse off compared to what they were before the name change. So it is the same thing with the nomenclature. We call them bandits, we call them assailants, we call them arsonists, and finally pressure left, right, and center that they should be called terrorists. But we didn't see any change. Right. Yes.
Yesterday we saw in the news that some media picked up the story saying about 50 people, were burnt to death and all of that, and we saw officials saying no, only 23 people, and then many were wondering, so is 23 not a large number that these officials are saying only 23 people?
Yes, but today how many papers did you see carrying this story? We don't even have the culture of follow-ups. Most of the media houses in Nigeria, it happened. If it were in other climes, this incident alone will last for a year.
Right.
The papers will keep hammering, asking questions. You understand?
Yes.
So the debate was just on the day that it happened, and then officials debunk it. In fact, some will even tell you that it didn't happen, even for the gory photos that went viral.
Right.
We have cheapened lives in Nigeria. That whatever, no matter the magnitude of the incident, it only lasts for hours. And sadly, it is happening this way because every other day is another day for new calamity. And I think that is why some papers or media houses, including television and radio, they don't pay attention. They don't remain on the stories. You can see in the Daily Trust, we even have the photos of the burial. We could not use some of the photos because the people, they were roasted. It's so sad, and I think we have to change our attitude because we have to hold power to account.
Okay, now this brings me, to the question about editorial, judgment and all of that. As we can see, other newspapers, for instance, the Daily Trust newspaper is leading with a story about tour operators, and the whole Saudi, situation and all of that. What really, is the basis for media houses, to choose their lead stories?
It is the normal news values that we all learn in school. They will tell you proximity, magnitude, prominence, and all that. Yeah, but for a very long time, some of us have been advocating for a paradigm shift. Yes, we should have our values, especially the third world. We should have our news values, not defined by the West. We should look at news from its credibility and then its impact on the society. Of course, you cannot rule out the importance of banning Nigeria from going to Saudi Arabia because of the huge population of people that travel for various reasons, pilgrimage, umrah, business, and what have you. You must have interviewed people. Personally, I interviewed some people also last night while putting our story. Some have prepared to go for lesser Hajj because it's December, and they spend a lot of money and they are no longer going. But beyond that is the politics. You understand? As of last night, Nigeria had only 5 cases. In a country of over 200 million people, you have 5 cases. A day before, it was Britain. Before that, it was Canada, right? And now Saudi Arabia. And what they are saying is, if you want to go, you can leave Nigeria, go to another country, for instance, Niger. You can stay in Niger for 2 weeks, then you proceed to Saudi Arabia. I think it's an indictment on us. We call ourselves the giant of Africa, meaning we have a lot to do. I don't think if this will be done to another country. So our leaders must have to look at the political dimension to the Omicron or Delta or coronavirus or whatever. it is because directly or indirectly, some people are using this to get at Nigeria.
Okay, let's go back to insurgency. Now, recently, we've actually seen a lot of Boko Haram fighters surrendering. Now, the lead story on the Nation newspaper states that repentant Boko Haram fighters are not sincere, and this is coming from the army chief.
Yeah, you see, we were all carried away by the euphoria of, the mass outflows of Boko Haram fighters and their families. This started in May this year, following the death of Shekau. They were stranded, his followers. So many of them, they had no option than to surrender. But even then, we ask questions, especially here in Daily Trust. We carried many stories, including editorials, asking questions that, look, if somebody, an assailant who had been wielding bombs, who had been wielding AK-47 rifles, who had been using rocket-propelled grenades and all that to kill and maim, to destroy towns. And now they are coming out to say we have repented. And you don't see their arms. You need to ask questions. Of course, we are not unmindful of the fact that some of them were forcibly conscripted, especially women and children, and then many were trapped because they live around the Sambisa forest, around Alagarno, and all that. So when they saw the window, when they saw the opening following the death of Shekau, they all, left those areas. They went to Maiduguri and surrendered. But as I said, the military, the intelligence agency, and many in Nigeria, we keep just counting the numbers, just the way we used to count, dead bodies. That, okay, 8,000 have repented, 15,000, 18,000, 20,000 have repented. Which is not true. Yes, because some were only looking for oxygen to recover from the shock following the death of their leader. And then from the other side also, Habib, that is Al-Barnawi, who is the leader of ISWAP, also died. So there was a kind of confusion in the two camps. But you see, terrorists all over the world, they work ahead of time. Yes, they work ahead of time. So both the two camps, they kept strategizing, and they were able to regroup.
So, the questions, many would ask is, didn't we see this coming? Didn't Nigeria, plan ahead and all of that?
I don't think so. I don't think if we plan ahead, because I've been covering these insurgencies since the onset. I've been in Maiduguri for more than 15 years. I reported hundreds of stories on this, but we simply ignore, we simply forget. Sometimes it is we in the media that even remind our leaders that so thing happened, so time, and it is about to happen again. Something must be done. Of course, it's not easy to checkmate terrorism because of the guerrilla. It's a guerrilla warfare. So all over the world, countries battle for years to subdue terrorists. But that should not be an excuse. We should also learn by the day. And as I said, even in the media, we were not told how to cover terrorism in school. We learn it on the job, and we keep reporting. So unless we take this very seriously, the terrorists will come back. Yes, you can see it is now in the northwest. We were calling them bandits, and now even the federal government has gone to court, procured an order to call them terrorists. But it's just in a name. You have to devise means of being ahead of them instead of you responding to their atrocities.
Right.
Yeah, we should take the fight to them. We should decimate all their hideouts not only in the Northwest now, because this is the epicenter compared to what you have in 2013, 2015, 2016, which was the Northeast. But the fact that attention has been shifted to Northwest, now in the Northeast, they are regrouping. You can see they are now attacking communities. They are also waylaying people on the highways, killing them, meaning we are just going around.
The Economic Community of West African States has, reacted to this, saying it is scared of, the spread of terrorism and all of that. But many will agree that we are already at the verge of that.
We are. We have to address the issue collectively while attacking the terrorists wherever they are. We have to address the motivating factors. You see, 2 days ago, the Minister of Finance said by next year, if care is not taken, 109 million Nigerians will be in poverty. And that is a driving force. You understand? We have to address the issues holistically. If people are poor, if people are angry, they are bound to be criminals because they will be vulnerable. They will be easily swayed by criminals. Look at even the COVID issue. We said 1 million doses have expired. Why? Because people are not willing to go and take it. There are people, we interviewed people. Yesterday we asked our reporters to go to motor parks, to go and interview people. If you count 10, 9 will tell you we didn't take it. If you ask them why, they will say it's not our priority. Some will say, why can't you bring vaccine for malaria? If it were malaria vaccine, will it expire? You understand? So, world politics must have to change, must have to look at what people want. So people are not even forthcoming, especially in Africa, because they are angry, they are poor, they are hungry. So get food for the people, and provide jobs for them, take care of their children in school. You will see crimes and criminality going down, and they will accept any policy you bring for them.
Okay, let's move on to the power sector right now. Talking about AEDC. At first, it was total blackout, and then there were reports that Buhari suspended the management. And right now, on the front page of Daily Trust, you can see here that UBA has seized AEDC's 60% equity, and Buhari has actually denied any role in this. And also, the Minister of Power saying that it wasn't Buhari that suspended the management, it was shareholders that removed, the disco's management. High wire
politics. All over the world, wise men said success has many fathers, but failure? No. So this is what is happening even in the electricity sector. Yes, assuming it's a story that maybe no power outage in Abuja for 3 months, you will see how people will be, falling over themselves saying, I am responsible, I am responsible. But because there is a massive failure there, the workers down tools because they were aggrieved. For months, their pension and other allowances have not been paid. This is despite the fact that the agency, Abuja Electricity, like other discos, has been privatized. Now the company that bought the largest share there, they call it Khan, I think, it was UBA that provided the facility. And it appeared that the company was not forthcoming in paying the debts and all that, and using the instruments available to it, UBA now took over. Of course, we have the NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. They also intervened. The central bank also intervened. But 2 days ago, it was the Minister of State for Power who said the president has ordered the sacking of the leaders there. It was serious indictment on government. I think the minister goofed, honestly, because this is a private enterprise and it will scare investors away. Because by the time when federal government, knows into affairs of the private sector, investors will be scared away. Because the very reason why the facilities were sold was to get them right, believing that if you entrust them in the hands of private investors, they will do the needful. But it appears that we have failed, because up to now we are unable to get the power sector right. So that was basically the reason the senior minister issued a statement, but he was calm, tacitly saying it was the investors, the owners. Of course, there is an element of regulation from the federal government that acted, by removing the board and other senior staff of the agency. But later, I think the federal government also realized the implication of the back and forth, because we had to recall some of our pages last night to reflect the position of the federal government, the president distancing himself from what happened. But in a nutshell, it was an embarrassment.
Oh, thank you.
I think there's something on the line going on between the federal government and, AEDC that we do not know about.
Yes, but I don't want to discuss that here. Yes, as I said, there is politics in everything. The shareholding, some people who want to take the disco, power brokers. It is really high wire politics. Oh. Yes, but I think the poor are suffering, companies are suffering. Yeah, we are planning to do a story on, the cost of this.
Manufacturers are lamenting.
That is
it's terrible.
So it's very sad.
Thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning. As usual, we hope to see more of you coming on the program.
Inshallah, I'll be here all the time.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Hamza Idris, General Editor, Daily Trust. With that, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll move on to our first discussion. Stay tuned.